All right, so I told you that we were going to have to keep talking about the filibuster, and that's because it's basically, without exaggeration, going to be the deciding factor as to what Joe Biden is able to get done throughout his administration. We know that Republicans aren't going to work with him on anything, and so aside from passing another bill through the process of budget reconciliation, which only requires 51 votes, with Kamala Harris as the president of the Senate being the tiebreaker, that's what we just saw them use for the COVID relief package. Maybe in the future they'll be able to use it again for something like an infrastructure package, but you're really limited with what type of bills you're able to pass through the process of budget reconciliation. So everything else is going to be faced up against the filibuster, and the filibuster requires 60 votes to move past debate. How the filibuster used to work was you actually had to stand up there and talk and occupy the space and speak relentlessly in order to maintain the filibuster. How it works right now is you could basically just type an email and send it off and say, we're filibustering, and then that's it. They don't actually have to do any work. So we have an important adjustment here from Joe Biden, who previously it seemed like he was saying he didn't want to adjust the filibuster at all, and now it seems like he's saying something else. So let's go ahead and hear what Joe Biden had to say about the filibuster.
By your own admission, you just say you're not likely to get Republican votes for the tax increase. You're not likely to get Republican votes for H.R. 1, expanding voting rights, or the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. So aren't you going to have to choose? I know you've been reluctant to do away with the filibuster. Aren't you going to have to choose between preserving the filibuster and advancing your agenda?
Yes. But here's the choice. I don't think you have to eliminate the filibuster. You have to do it what it used to be when I first got to the Senate and back in the old days when you used to be around there. And that is that a filibuster, you had to stand up and command the floor. And you had to keep talking alone. You couldn't call for, no one could say, quorum call. Once you stopped talking, you lost that, and someone could move in and say, I moved the question of. So you got to work for the filibuster.
So you're for that reform. You're for bringing back the talking filibuster.
I am. That's what it was supposed to be. Look, I think, don't hold me to the numbers, George, but I think between 1960 and 2000, there were like, I'm making this number up, I don't know. There were like, 50 filibusters. And now they're like 200 since then. Since that
just put a hold
changed.
on it, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, so the idea, it almost is getting to the point where there's, democracy's having a hard time functioning. And so, look, I'm not saying this is going to be easy, George, but I do believe there's enough Republicans over time who are going to have, look,
they haven't had that epiphany you said you were going to see in the campaign.
No, well, I've only been here 6 weeks, pal. Okay, give me a break. Been here 6 weeks. I think the epiphany is going to come between now and 2022.
All right, so, I mean, listen, what he said there at the end is very obviously delusional, okay? He thinks that Republicans are going to have some sort of an epiphany between now and 2022. Are you out of your goddamn mind, okay? What just happened with the COVID relief package is a perfect example of this, okay? This is a bill that had close to 60% support within the Republican Party. And guess how many Republicans in the House and the Senate voted for that bill? Zero, absolutely zero. We can take an example from back in the Obama years as well. Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, was a right-wing Heritage Foundation conservative policy, Republican policy, and yet he made all of these concessions and zero Republicans supported Obamacare. So what we see is this consistent pattern where when Republicans are not in the majority, they're not going to help you with shit, even if it's on Republican agenda items, okay? And so that part of it is just absolutely flat out delusional on Joe Biden's part. And if you want to get clobbered in the 2022 midterms, then go with that mindset that Joe Biden just espoused right there and keep believing that conservatives are going to work with you on good legislation. It's not fucking happening. But beyond that, okay, so there's basically this continuing debate between now the Overton window has shifted, right? Before it was do nothing about the filibuster or do end the filibuster. And now it's sort of more reform the filibuster or get rid of the filibuster entirely. And I'm still of the position that we should get rid of the filibuster entirely, okay? I think it's a Jim Crow relic. I think it's largely been used to obstruct democracy in the past, and so I think you get rid of it. And yes, there is the risk that if Republicans come into power that, yeah, you don't have the filibuster either, and they could just as easily pass bad legislation that I don't like and that the American people don't like. But I think that's a fight that's worth taking on, and I think at least if Democrats were actually to follow through on a lot of their big agenda items, Republicans shouldn't ever take power again. You should win repeatedly throughout history, especially especially if you manage to pass things like the voting rights bill that they are putting forward right now, that you're never going to get Republicans to sign off on. But if you pass it, it will expand voting rights. And really, I mean, without gerrymandering and without voter suppression, Republicans would never win an election again. I mean, when's the last time that Republicans won the popular vote in any of these presidential elections? It just doesn't happen anymore. And so you should never lose that power again, is basically what I'm saying. So I'm in favor of getting rid of the filibuster. But the next step, if you're not willing to get rid of the filibuster, is you reform the filibuster and make it how it used to be. He's right in that sense of this is how the filibuster is supposed to be. If you want the filibuster in place, is if you're going to obstruct legislation that is supported by the overwhelming majority of the American people, and your party is not even in control, you're in the minority, all it takes is 40 senators to filibuster. So at least you should have to work for it, right? I mean, at least you should have to stand up there and explain relentlessly why you are opposing this popular legislation. So I mean, that's something that would be good for Democrats all around, is having Republicans have to get up there in front of the cameras, in front of the American people as they're blocking massively popular pieces of legislation and explain to people why they're blocking them. Those are arguments and optical issues that they're going to lose repeatedly, if you ask me. So that's good. I mean, listen, I get it. I understand Joe Manchin is hardline in the sand. He said 100% he would not support getting rid of the filibuster. So I don't know that that's even on the table as of right now. But if we can get it back to the talking filibuster, that will at least be some progress in the right direction, because, you know, you can't endlessly stand up there and filibuster for infinity, okay? And so it would make it significantly harder for Republicans to actually do this, instead of the ability that they have now, as Biden was just saying, where they can basically just, you know, type an email, and that's that. They don't have to actually do anything to block this legislation, and they can do it indefinitely. So a step in the right direction here. We'll see if he's actually willing to apply pressure. I guess Manchin has come out and said that he's somewhat in favor of a similar thing here. So, you know, this could be good. At least one step in the right direction, getting rid of that 60 vote threshold, because if you keep the 60 vote threshold for everything, you are flat out not going to pass any pieces of your legislation. If the filibuster continues to operate in the way that it is now, you're not going to get anything done unless it's through the process of budget reconciliation. And with that, you're constrained not only on how many times you can do it in a single year, but also on the types of legislation. You wouldn't be able to pass voting rights bills. You wouldn't be able to pass anything that's not directly pertinent to spending in the budget. So, I mean, at least a little bit of good news here. Joe Biden drifting in the right direction.